Welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. Hello, I am Dr. Shadab Khan, Assistant Professor at Department of Geography, Kirodimal College, University of Delhi. Today I am going to discuss applied geomorphology. Let's start with introduction. There has been an increasing recognition of the practical application of geomorphic principles and the findings of geomorphological research to human beings who are influenced by and in turn influence the surface features of the earth. Continuous increase in population has led to pressure on land resources, extension of agricultural to hilly and marginal lands, resulted in man-induced catastrophes like soil erosion, landslides, sedimentation and floods. A proper interpretation of landforms throws light upon the geological history, structure and lithology of a region. As geology becomes more specialized, there is a growing possibility that the application of geomorphology to problems of applied geology will be overlooked. The role of applied geomorphology related mainly to the problems of analyzing and monitoring landscape forming process that may arise from human interference. Human beings have over time tried to tame and modify geomorphic or the environmental processes to suit their economic needs. Geomorphology has diverse application over a large area of human activity, while geomorphologists may serve more effectively the need of society. Now, let us understand the relationship between drainage geomorphology and hydrology in applied geomorphology. Water on the surface of the earth or groundwater used by human is available from different sources like streams, lakes and rivers. The lithological zones present different conditions of surface as well as groundwater. Hydrology of limestone terrain. Comprehensive understanding of geomorphology is key to understand the hydrological problem of the limestone terrain. Limestone region yield more water than due to this rock formation. Availability of water in limestone region depends on the type of rock. On the basis of permeability, limestone rocks may be primary or secondary. Calcareous sediments decide the formation of rock and its primary permeability, while earth movements in the form of tension and compression such as faulting, folding, warping and due to solution or corrosion mechanism decide the secondary permeability. Joints and fractures produced by diagnetic and diastrophic process inform the secondary or acquired permeability, which resulted into solution. The cavities of the solution in limestone region depends on whether it has been situated in the past or allow joints and bedding planes to the actively more enlarged. In Florida, these solution cavities are common at the considerable depth in the tertiary limestones. The significance of solution opening with increasing permeability is important in present day topography, but also in karst landscape too. Geomorphology plays an important to obtain water in limestone region. It may be easy or difficult to obtain water from wells in a limestone terrain. There may not be difficulty in obtaining wells of a large yield if the limestone have enough permeability and are capped with sandstone layer. In such case, the yield of water may be low or inadequate, but subject to contamination. Karst plain lacks filtering cover and any swallow holes, sink holes or karst valleys within an area of clastic rocks should cast doubt upon the purity of the water of springs. Glaciated areas and groundwater. Periglacier and the glacier time history. Types of deposits, landforms determine the possibilities of large supplies of groundwater potentials in glaciated regions. Yield of large volume of water obtained from outwash plain, valley terrain and intertilled gravels or buried outwash. Due to clay content, most of the aquifers are poor but containing local strata of sand. Grave may hold and supply enough water for domestic needs. The study of periglacier topography and geomorphic history of the area could detect the presence and absence of underground water. Let us now look at the geomorphology and mineral exploration in detail. There is a close association of geological structure and minerals deposits. Characteristics of landscape of specific areas could indicate these geological structures. Economic geologist has not appreciated the exploration of some minerals in the name of understanding of the geomorphic features and history of a region. In search for mineral deposits, these 3 points may serve for geomorphic features. Point number 1, some minerals have direct topographic expression for its deposits. Point number 2, geological structure and topography of an area have correlation which clue the accumulation of minerals. And point number 3, geomorphic history clearly indicates the physical condition under which the minerals accumulates or were enriched of a particular area. First, we will talk about the surface expression of ore bodies. Some of the ore bodies have surface expression but may do as topographic form as outcrop of ore, gossan or residual minerals, or as such structural features fault, fracture and breccia zones. It is not necessary that all ore outcrops are reflected in positive topographic forms. The Leedzang lode could be marked by the conspicuous ridges in the case of the Broken Hills of Australia. Quartz yields could stand out prominently as they are much more resistant to erosion than the unsilicated rocks as in Chihuahua in Mexico. Some veins and mineralized areas may lack conspicuous topographic expression, or it may be reflected by subsident features or depression, though no generalization can be made about the exact type of topography necessary for the iron ore accumulation. Distinct topographic expression is needed for a particular deposit. Residual iron deposits are the result of concentration of iron due to the long period of weathering, and thus for their accumulation old erosion and weathering surfaces are favorable sites. Next, let us understand the weathering residues. Geomorphology can play an important role for several important economic minerals which are essentially weathering residues for present or ancient geomorphic cycles. Apart from iron deposits, materials like clay minerals, calcite, bauxite and some manganese and nickels are of this nature. Recent weathering surfaces may exhibit residual weathering products, or it may lie upon ancient weathering surfaces which are not buried. Peneplain or near peneplain surfaces are most commonly surfaces upon which they form. In general, such minerals are to be found upon remnants of tertiary erosional surfaces above present base level of erosion. It is not yet clear why the weathering of igneous rocks produces both clay minerals or hydrous aluminous silicates and hydrous oxides of aluminous such as bauxite. The differences in the final product is determined by the climatic condition under which weathering takes could be one of the explanation. The residual products from the weathering of igneous rocks, clay minerals found in temperature climates known as kaolinization. It should be recognized that numerous minerals other than kaolin may form in the same climate. On the contrary, under tropical climates, final weathering products are hydrous oxides of such metals as aluminium, manganese and iron. This type of weathering is known as lateralization. The phase of geology which concerned with the recognition and the study of ancient weathering surfaces and soil has come to be known as paleopadology. Though it offers many possibilities, but still in its infancy in search for the type of the minerals deposits designated as weathering residues of geological phase. We will now look at the epigenetic minerals and inconformities. Ancient erosion surfaces are associated with numerous deposits of epigenetic minerals. Mills and Ehrlich in 1966 emphasized the role played by unconformities in the localization of mineral deposits. The mineral deposits found from the ranging age of Precambrian to the Tertiary shown evidences of close association with conformities in districts of US and Canada. Such minerals are uranium, vanadium, copper, barite, fluorite, lead, nickel and manganese. There is a constant work of weathering and erosion on the rocks of the Earth's surface, and this weathering work has economical value of rock products. Another mineral exploration is placer deposits. Placer deposits are mixture of heavy metals with specific location. Geomorphic principles have been applied other than any other phase of economic geology. Geomorphic processes are the main cause of a placer concentration of minerals found in specific position with distinct topographic expression. The deposition of placer affected by the type of rock forming the bedrock floor. There are as many as 9 types of placer deposits. They are residual or seam diggings, colloidal, bajada, beach, glacial, including those in end moraines and valley trains, and buried and ancient placers. The most important among them is alluvial placer. Now, other name of the residual placer is seam digging, which are residue from the weathering of quartz, stringers or veins, are usually of a partial amount and grade down into lodes. Creep down slope is the main reason for the production of colluvial placer and are thus transitional between residual placer and the alluvial placer. Most of the old placers of this form have been found in California, Australia, New Zealand and elsewhere. Colluvial placers and alluvial placers are part of the tin placers of Malaya, about one-third of the world's platinum is in Russia, Colombia and elsewhere, has been obtained from the alluvial places. The most important minerals like gold, tin and diamond are obtained from alluvial places. South Africa's diamond from Vaal and Orange River districts, the Lichtenburg area, the Belgian Congo and the Brazil's Minas Gerais are obtained from alluvial places. Placer deposits have total share of around 20% of world's diamond. Australia, Lower California, Mexico have yielded gold in aeolian places. Gold in California, Alaska diamonds in the Namaqualand districts of South Africa, zircon in India, Brazil and Australia, and ilmenite and monazite from Travancore, India have yielded from beach places. Lastly, we talk about the oil exploration. Several oil fields have been discovered because of their striking topographic expressions. These oil fields are characterized by anticlinal structures which strikingly reflected in topography. When viewed from aerial photograph, many of the Gulf Coast salt dome structures are evident in the topography. For the student of geomorphology, it is fairly good working principle of suspect that areas that are topographically high may also be structurally high, where possibilities of topographical inversion at the crust of a structural high may result with weak beds. In regions of heavy tropical forest, topography cannot be seen through the intense forest cover. An anticlinal or dominal structure may outline due to the tonal differences in the investigation. In search for oil, more subtle evidences of geological structure favorable to oil accumulation is being made. Aerial photography is one such technique through which drainage analysis of a terrain can be shown. Drainage analysis is useful particularly in regions where rocks have low dips and the topographic relief is slight permeability. It may be either primary or the secondary or carbonate rocks. Number of large oil yields from limestone has been obtained from rocks which have a high degree of permeability produced by solution. Elongate buried sand bodies are basically shoestring sands. Probably there is no phase of petroleum exploration which can use to better advantage as knowledge of the depth characteristics of a specific topographic features than that which deal with the misuse of shoestring sands. Most of the oil and gas sources are associated with unconformities, ancient erosion surfaces, hence a petroleum geologist must deal with buried landscapes. After discussing the mineral exploration, we shall now understand the geomorphology and engineering works. Evolution of geological factors of one type or another often involved in most of the engineering projects. Among all the factors, terrain characteristics is most common. A detailed study of the geomorphic history of an area may support the proper evaluation of superficial material and the bedrock profile configuration. Let us study the three other important engineering works. First one, road construction. Topographic features of an area determined by the most feasible highway route. Road engineering faces a number of problems by different types of terrain that includes geologic structure, geomorphic history of the area, lithological and stratigraphic characteristics and strength of the superficial deposits. Area like karst plain required repeat cut and till. If not done, then the road will be flooded after heavy rains within surface runoff from the sinkholes. The presence of enlarged solutional cavities in karst region emphasize on the design of roads in such a way that roads should not be weakened. Region like glacier terrain present a number of engineering problems. Road construction in a flat till plain is topographically ideal, but other areas where moraines, eskers, cames or drumlins-like features exist, there is a need for cut and fill to avoid circuitous routes. Areas which are characterized by late youth and maturity of relief will require more bridge construction and many cuts and fills. These types of areas are consistently facing problems like landslides, earth flow and slumping. Landslides are different types of mass wasting present problems not only in different phases of engineering, but in a highway construction also. Subgrade or the soil beneath a road surface has become more significant because of its control over the drainage beneath a highway. Therefore, construction design of a highway should be in such a way to carry heavy traffic. Two factors largely determine the lifetime of a highway. Under moderate load, it is quality of a aggregate used in the highway and the soil texture and subgrade drainage. The type of parent material and the relationship of soil to its varying topographic condition are more essential in modern roads construction. The most serious problem encountered by highway engineers is pumping, which means expulsion of water from beneath road slabs through joints and cracks. It is evident that pumping is particularly greater over glacier till than over permeable material such as wind-blown sand and outwash gravel. Poor drainage in a subgrade is mainly responsible for pumping. Poor and best performance of the highway is characterized by silty clay subgrades with a high water table and granular material with a low water table respectively. Second, dam site selection. A synthesis of a knowledge concerning the geomorphology, lithology and geological structure of a terrain has greatly helped while selecting site for dam construction. According to Bryan, 5 main requirements of good reservoir site depends on geologic conditions. Adequate size watertight basin. Second, a narrow outlet of the basin with a foundation that will permit economical construction of a dam. Third, to build an adequate and safe spillway to carry excess waters. Availability of resources needed for dam construction, and last, assurance that excessive deposit of mud and silt will not short the life of the reservoir. Constructing a dam in a limestone terrain may prove a difficult one. For instance, the Hondo River was built over limestone in the southern New Mexico with a water table some 20 feet below the surface. Rapid leakages was the cause to abandon of the reservoir. Building a dam in a valley may not be good dam site from the standpoint view of the size of the dam. Buried bedrocks, valley containing sand and gravel fills are common in glaciated areas, which may not depict adequate picture of surface condition. Making dam on those sites where subsurface topography is not supportive with buried periglacial valley with stands and gravel in it would have a chance of leakage. Third, location of sand and gravel pits. Sand and gravel pits have more commercial and industrial uses than many engineering. Evaluation of geologic factors such as variation in grade sizes, lithologic composition, degree of weathering, amount of overburden and continuity of the deposits are important while selecting suitable sites for sand and gravel pits. Floodplain, river terrace, alluvial fane and cone talus, wind-blown residuals and glacial deposits of various types are areas where sand and gravels may be found in abundance. In recent years, there is a great demand of gravels than sand due to decreased use of plaster in home construction. Therefore, knowledge of various grade size is more important. There are high proportions of silt and sand in floodplains, deposits which show many variable and vertical gradations and heterogeneous lateral. With their angular shape as well as variable in size, alluvial fan and cone gravels are found near their apicices. Being angular like talus materials are too large to be useful and are limited in extent. There is only sand in wind-blown sands but have no gravel. Residual deposits are likely to contain pebbles that are suitable for cement work. These residuals are also limited in extent. Favorable sites for pits are terraced valley, trains and outwash plains which are usually extensive and do not have a thick overburden. Due to its large amount of the material, came deposits show a poor degree of assortment because it discarded on the ground of too large or too fine. Now, let us understand about the geomorphology and military geology. Allied powers during World War were slow to make the maximum use of geology in warfare. Geologists were utilized but to a limited extent in World War I. Before military authorities saw the need for and possibilities of the use of geological experts, the war was well advanced. During wars, the information that was useful was more geologic than geomorphic in nature. The information regarding digging trenches, mining, counter-mining and waste supply or other material was not utilized. Topography became more important during World War II with the development of the blitzkrieg type of warfare because effectiveness of a blitz depends to a large extent upon the trafficability of the terrain. In recent years, terrain appreciation or terrain analysis have become more important with military. For certain, if geological map fails somewhere, geological principle can be applied with advantage to interpreting the terrain from aerial photographs. Little training required to recognize features like mountains, hills, lakes, rivers, woods, plains or some kind of a swamp. It is important to know the kind of a hill, plain, river or lake and so on, because by knowing this it is quite possible to reconstruct the geology of that region. Aerial photographs are useful for the preparation of terrain intelligence as they provide information on the geology of the area. Terrain has been an important factor in the Korean War and in the fighting in the Vietnam region. With the development of atomic bomb and ballistic missiles, topography would no longer play an important role in wars, but it's confined to the local areas for war purpose. We will now look at the geomorphology and regional planning. Geomorphological information can be utilized at various levels of planning. Combination of topographic information, soils, hydrology, lithology, terrain characteristics and engineering included on terrain maps makes suitable for regional planning. Applied geomorphology has distinct place in regional planning. At broadest scale, it can be used as delineate areas for forest, mountain, plateau, recreational rural and urban areas. A balanced growth of a country's economy requires a careful understanding of its natural resources like human resources. Rural or underdeveloped terrain fulfills a variety of recreational needs. There is a transformation from a terrain maps into land use suitability maps to develop rural and urban areas. Detailed information on topography enlighten regional planners who may then advise development projects best suited for separate region. Let us study the geomorphology and urbanization. There is a separate branch known as urban geomorphology applied to urban development. According to R.U. Cook, this branch of geomorphology is concerned with the study of landforms and their related processes, materials and hazards, ways that are beneficial to planning, development and management of urbanized areas where urban growth is expected. Geomorphic features decide the stability, safety, basic needs and even its expansion. That means city or town entirely depends on lithological and topographical features, hydrological conditions and geomorphical features. Urban geomorphologists commence even before urban development through field survey, terrain classification, identification and selection of alternative sites for settlement irrespective of plain or hilly areas. These urban geomorphologists would be concerned with the impact of natural events on the urban community and that of urban development on the environment. When geomorphologist problems not understood by the planners and engineers, then it leads to destruction and damage to urban settlement in different environmental regions. Settling of foundation material in a dry or a glacier region, weathering process damage of roads and building through floods in many parts of the world are not a recent phenomena. These problems arise due to misunderstanding of the geomorphological condition. In developing countries, attention has not been given to the geomorphological conditions before the development of existing urban centers. This leads to haphazard growth of city with squatter settlement and shanty towns with urban morphology. Next, let us understand the geomorphology and coastal zone management. Coastal zones are not in linear as a boundary between the land, water, rather viewed as a dynamic region of interface of land and water. The major threat to the fragile coastal zone is its deteriorating coastal environment through shoreline erosion, loss of natural beauty, pollution and extinction of species. Coastal zones management requires an integral approach. The most widespread material is beach sand found mainly in low latitudes. Beach sand and gravel is widely used for construction industry. Geomorphologists have made some significant contribution towards an understanding of shorelines equilibrium in eastern Australia, where it is considerable development of sand mining for heavy minerals has been done. Some measures have been designed or coast protection includes sea defense structure such as sea walls, breakwaters, jetties and grounds. To protect the sea backwater zone from the direct erosion cut, sea walls are designed since these walls are impermeable. They increase backwash and produce a destructive wave effect. Breakwaters can be built either normal or parallel to the coast. it is necessary to monitor and quantifying wave condition, tidal currents and sediment movements in the nearshore zones to evaluate how sea defenses and other man-made structure affect shoreline's equilibrium. In context of coastal zone management, Hales emphasizes that applied geomorphology must be concerned with quantitative, not descriptive research in order to obtain relevant and accurate data on number 1, natural resources and deposition, number 2, at what rates amount the sediment transport from river catchment to the near shore zone, third, variation in sedimentation composition and offshore distribution, 4, sand supply sources and shoreline equilibrium, fifth, interchange rate of sand between beaches and dune system, 6, the effect of constructing sea defenses, number 7, offshore sediments dispersal and bridging effects of seabeds morphology, sediment transport, wave refraction, and 8th, analyzing of landforms including topography of the near shore zone from the continental shelf and of relict coastlines, particularly in terms of rock outcrops. Above, the investigation provides relevant baseline data based for systematic planning process and monitoring programs, but also for land use schemes. In this last section, we will talk about geomorphology and hazard management. Hazard can be put in a natural or man-induced, where tolerable level of or unexpected nature exceeds. According to Chorley, geomorphic hazard may be defined as any change, natural or man-made. They may affect the geomorphic stability of a landform to the adversely of living things. These hazards may arise from immediate and sudden movements like volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, landslides, avalanches, floods, etc. Faulting, folding, warping, uplifting, subsidence or vegetation change and hydraulic regime due to climatic change arise from the long-term factors. Areas having past case histories of volcanism and seismic events help in making predictions of possible eruption and earthquake respectively. Regular monitoring of seismic waves, measurement of temperature of crater lakes, hot springs, geysers and changes in the configuration of volcanoes, whether dormant or the extinct, can reduce the hazard to some extent. A detailed knowledge of topography can predict the path of lava flow and its eruption points in advance. The behavior of a river system can be well understood by its geomorphic knowledge through its channel, morphology, flow pattern and river metamorphism and so on. It may help controlling excess water in river and control measures during flood season. Prior knowledge of erosion in the upper catchment area and carrying sediments to its proportion may help in understand the gradual rise in a river bed, which may lead to levee breached and cause sudden floods. Earthquakes may be man-induced or natural geomorphic hazards. Detailed study of seismic waves region would help in identifying and mapping the zones of high or low intensity to reduce the risk of human life. In the end, let us look at the other application of geomorphology. Some of the application of geomorphic principles have been used in applied geomorphology, but there are other fields where geomorphic knowledge of terrain is more important. Soils maps to some extent are topographic maps, and differences in soil series fundamentally rest upon topographic conditions under which each portion of soil series developed. Soil erosion related problem is essentially a problem involving recognition and proper control of such geomorphic processes like sheet erosion, gullying, mass wasting and stream erosion. The angle of slope is not single factor determine the severity of erosion. With the introduction of air photographs and satellite imageries, preparation of specialized maps and interpreting them has become easier and more accurate. Nowadays, aerial photographs are being used for evaluating landforms and land use for city development plans, construction projects, highway, etc. Another tool, that is remote sensing, is necessary for sustainable management of natural resources like soil, forest, crops, oceans, urban and town planning, etc. At present, Geographical Information System (GIS), the technology has been used along with remote sensing techniques in geomorphic features interpretation. All fields discussed in this chapter should be sufficient to show an understanding of geomorphic principles. Besides the geomorphic history of a particular region, geomorphic features may contribute in applied geology to the solution of the problems. To control the adverse effect of human activities on geomorphic forms and processes, application of geomorphology can be of immense use. Thank you all, and happy learning.